Hey, what's up? Thanks for tuning into German Chocolate, Life of a Mixed Girl, and season one of The Experts I Know. And today I have someone here from the West Coast. We're living in the West Coast, and that is John Watkins, voice actor and professional speaker. So he travels a lot. So today I thought, why not switch up the environment? So if you're watching and not listening, I am in my car. And that's a reference most people won't get from the times when I lived in Detroit from 105.9 where Detroit jams. It used to be a thing. I always wanted to say that. So hi, John.
Hey, Jessica, thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm so excited. Whenever we meet, it's just like instant. It's so much fun, which gets me into how did we meet? Typical thing that we talk about. So, voiceovers of VO Atlanta. So we already established you're a voice actor. I'm a voice actor. We met at VO Atlanta last year. Like I met a whole bunch of exciting people there. And it was, I don't know how it got to the topic, but I live in like the Tampa area. And you're like, you live in Tampa. I was like, what? I live in that area. What? There's like literally like nobody here. So it was so cool to see you and Megan, who's also on this season on one of the episodes. But when I met you another time last year at SoBus, I found out that you left me and you moved to Los Angeles. So how, I know right after we met, you're traveling a lot. You had just moved into your place in the summer. But now that you've been there for a while, how has that transition been moving from Southeast to the hub spot?
You know, a lot of people say that they sometimes don't know what day it is. For me, it's I don't know what time it is because I moved in August. That's when I made the drive from Tampa to LA. And I've been going all over, back to the East Coast and back to the West since then. And here on the West Coast, because most of my clients are on the East Coast, when I wake up at 6, they're in the office, they're doing stuff. I'm looking for emails. Then I travel, I get to the East Coast, I wake up at 6, and nobody's sending me emails. But my brain says that there should be emails in my box at that time. So
I get
I
that
have to
hard.
figure out where I am. And it's a lot. I'm not used to the time zones, and I've been doing it weekly for the past month and a half. That it's been DC, New York, Toronto, LA, DC, New York, DC, LA.
I was going to say, last time we wanted to do this, you were in Canada. So that was also really exciting. But it was the same time zone, Canada, right?
Yes, it was Eastern.
Oh, man. Yeah. That for real, that was one of the things when I worked for a tech company and we were all scattered. The teams were all over the country, even the world. And I always started working at 5:30, 6 a.m. I like to get there before it gets really crazy. So I can't imagine all the people like that were starting in the West Coast and they're like, whoa, no meetings at 10 a.m. your time. It's 7 here. I would have so much FOMO. I like couldn't do it.
I, for some reason, didn't even consider that. And once it hit, I've been doing workshops at 5 a.m. I have one coming up that's global and international. I'll be speaking at 11 p.m. Pacific time. So it's all over the map.
I only really experience that when I take voice acting classes that are in Cali time, and they're like, "Oh, cool! This is 8 p.m. 3 hours." I was like, "It's about to be midnight. It's past my bedtime."
Yes.
Oh man! So other than that, have you noticed any differences in the industry? Could be as a voice actor or as a speaker living in LA, like networking, being out there, or anything else? Any differences, pros and cons?
It's very different. LA is a different world. I've been all over the world, and LA is, I've never seen anything like it. What I noticed with the networking here is when someone says, let's have coffee, they actually mean to meet in the same place, which for me was absolutely weird because it was all Zoom. It was let's talk on the phone. But people here, when they say let's do coffee, they mean let's actually sit in the same It's weird.
That sounds
So
so European. I love that. Oh my God. Do you like
it
that,
is
or would you
very much
prefer
that.
to do or like a call, or do you actually like it?
I like it. I'm getting used to it. I like coffee, so it's nice to get out into different spaces, but also human connection, which has been missing so much over the past
Yeah.
2 years. It feels nice to be in a room with someone, and I've had lunches that have just gone on for hours. Of course, Vanessa, Vanessa, we have
Oh
had
yeah.
coffee, and the hours just fly by. It's like, oh wow, we've been here a long time. So that part of it is nice that you can connect and you can allow the time to pass. As if you're on screen, it's just not that easy. The level of connection is not there. So that is definitely one. There
I
are
can see
so
that.
many screenings out here. Oh my goodness! This movie screening, this show is screening. These actors are showing up, and here's free tickets. It's nonstop out here in terms of the industry, and that's great. That's what I love
Yeah.
most about being here. Is that you throw a rock, you're going to hit someone in the industry. My
That's the
next door
thing that you
neighbor,
think that wouldn't. Usually people are like, oh, just because I live here, it wouldn't. So are you saying it happened? You say your next door neighbors?
yeah, anyone you meet, I go salsa dancing. I'm meeting directors. I'm meeting other actors. Yeah, so my neighbor, he said to me one day, because I sing in the house, and I think I probably sing loud. So
You have that
he, might,
voice.
he probably hears me. And one day we were coming out at the same time. He says, "What do you do?" And I told him that I do professional speaking. He says, "Oh, I can hear that resonance in your voice." He says, "I'm a writer. I actually create animated series." And I said, "Oh, I'm a
Ooh.
voice actor." Exactly. So my neighbor, you go into his place and he's got a huge wall of all those characters, and anywhere, anywhere, everyone who's, I won't say everyone, but people are in the business here. And there's that energy that is really nice in terms of walking by a cafe and the laptops are open and people are creating films and so much of it. It's nice. It's freeing.
Aw, I'm glad to hear it because it can be so hard when people make that move from somewhere that's so quiet, especially the industry, to there. But speaking about your resonating voice, some people might think it sounds so familiar. I can kind of, what is it? It's somewhere right there. So, and I'm going to quote your website. First Canadian-born actor to play the role of Mufasa in the Disney musical The Lion King. So the people want to know more. Okay, what, where, when, how long, like what? Tell me more.
I was I was in the original Canadian cast of The Lion King. This is a long time ago. It was back in 2000. And the irony is that I wasn't performing at the time. I hadn't performed for years. I went to theater art school and I got kicked out in the 11th grade. I failed
Ooh,
theater arts. Never made the school musical, which was the pajama game. I remember it. I didn't even make it to the final cut. I did not get into the jazz choir. I tried out for the talent show with Deborah Cox, Soul Train Award winner, who's now on Broadway heading up the Wiz. And we didn't make the talent show. She got in by herself. So I should not have had any inclination when I saw the ad in the newspaper that said, yes, this is what newspapers were still popular, singers wanted in The Lion King. But I was coming back from a trip. I was traveling, speaking just like I do now. Ad said singers wanted for The Lion King. And every city that I visited, I would do karaoke.
I know
So
that. I've seen it.
I just figured, you know what? I'm going to go do my karaoke song because they said they wanted 16 bars a cappella.
Hmm.
Signed up. There were hundreds of people there that day. And they told me when I signed up, they said you have about 3 hours before you can audition. Do you have
Hmm.
your sheet music? I said, sheet music? They said a cappella. So during my 3 hours, I went downtown to the music store. I just called to say I love you. And then I brought that back, and that was my audition for the show. And I got in. That was it. They
Was
gave me
it
the
with
script.
callbacks and stuff, or was it like that one audition and then they picked?
Oh, there were callbacks. And what's funny about it is when I went to the initial audition, no pressure. I got in there, I sang, I was cool because I didn't expect anything. And they hand
Yeah.
me a script that says Mufasa. And when they called me back the next time, one of the people afterwards said, I could see your knee shaking. It was it was bad. I went through, I believe, 3 auditions. So the initial
Wow.
one, 2 callbacks that included a dancing audition. And then they called me and said, we would like you to be the understudy for Mufasa. So the person who played Mufasa, Eugene Clark, is an American. He's actually done quite a few movies. He was a former football player. And so Eugene was the original Mufasa, but I was the first Canadian to step into that role.
Ooh.
That's how I got on stage to do that role. It was incredible. The first time I did the role, I panicked. I had a freak attack.
Oh.
The shout went out right at the beginning. And I stood backstage and I said, I can't do this.
And I can imagine what it feels like because I actually seen The Lion King when it first opened in Hamburg, Germany. And when that line went off, I was sobbing for the first line. So I can't even imagine. You think, oh, I'm going to go perform, and you're going to have to kind of work with that that you're hearing. Oh my God.
Yeah, and this is Saturday night. It's a Saturday night show, biggest night of the week. And they told me after the first show, after the matinee, that I was going on.
Oh,
So I lost my mind.
oh my
And I
God.
was arguing, walking out on stage with Topaz. She was Sarabi. Like, I can't do this. Yes, you can. I can't do it. Was something else. So fortunately, yeah, I made it through that show. And the following few nights, I probably did a full week of being on stage as Mufasa before I went back to the ensemble. And the second night was fine. It's just that first
Hmm.
night, whew, that was a world of anxiety that I have never felt anything like.
I can't even imagine. But it's interesting that you said that you felt like better the second time, because the reason why I don't like doing theater anymore as much is because like knowing the whole day that I was going to have to be on stage 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and anything can happen on stage. You could stumble, someone else could stumble, you forget your lines, somebody else forget their lines, the props. Maybe the on stage change I have to do in 10 seconds. It's not going to happen fast enough. Just that level of anxiety and the entire time, it was the same every single time. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I think the good part for me is that I had been doing the show for months already.
Okay,
We
okay.
were a few months into the run. So I was comfortable being on stage and with the audience. It was just I wasn't comfortable doing that role where
Oh,
I was
yeah.
the guy. That's what freaked me out. Yeah, that it totally freaked me out.
Well, that is amazing. So I saw on your website that you have this thing called Lessons in the Circle of Life. It sounds so familiar. Are those two connected? What is it? What are you offering here?
This is a keynote that I do for conferences, and it takes a look at the show and things that happened during the show that are lessons for leadership and for self-care. And for
Huh.
example, you talked about anything being able to go wrong. There was one show where we were on the elevator, and I don't know if you'll remember this scene. There's a bunch of grass that comes up. They start off just as grass on the stage, but then they go up and it turns into bodies. There are actually people standing there. There were 5 men standing with grass heads. I used to oil my body with baby oil because I just did my workout transition routine. Anyhow, on one of the trips up that elevator, we just heard the chain and it stopped. Yeah.
Oh my
And they
God.
had to get us off the elevator. This was a matinee. Got us off the elevator, and they eventually got the elevator up to the stage because it was a plank, and that plank became part of the stage. So they got it back up to the stage, and we were in a delay. They paused the show for hours. Yes, yes.
Oh,
And so let
that's,
me
go ahead. It sounds terrible.
So they pause the show. They're getting the stage as balanced as they can. Everyone in the audience is there for hours, and they finally bring us back on stage and they say, we're ready to go. And when we're getting back on stage in our spots, you can see all of the carpenters looking down at the stage, just shaking their head. And they ended up canceling the show
What
because
happened?
they couldn't get the plank of the elevator sawed off enough that it would have been a flat surface, which meant that one of the performers or any of the performers could have been injured if we had gone on.
Oh,
And so we canceled the show after people waited for hours. Tickets were always sold out months in advance. And what's the lesson? Sometimes the show can't go on.
oh,
Because very often what happens in our lives, in our careers, is we want to do as much as we can to please others. And we're afraid to disappoint others. And often we'll do it at our own expense, harming our own self.
oh,
But
yeah.
those are just some of the behind the scenes topics that I take that people wouldn't have known from the show. And I show how they apply to our lives.
And I can think of so many things because I know just thinking about like I was doing an episode earlier and just so many things went wrong. And it was very clear it was a lot of technical things and other things that were happening. And I just felt bad. This person took time of their day and we had scheduled it and like announced that we were going to do it. And just while talking, it would just cut out or something would happen. And I just felt terrible. But I knew this person was like, no, it's all good, understandable. But I just felt like, oh my God, this unprofessional, or this it's gonna think, what is this? And just everything. But sometimes, yeah, you gotta. So I also was like, okay, I don't want this to go on this way. It's not nice. It's not gonna be pleasurable. It's not gonna be nice to cut it together. Let's do this another time. But if I'm thinking about the show, I would be like, let's add another show at the end because these poor people didn't get to see it all. But that doesn't usually happen that way.
And it didn't. I don't know how they compensated the people or rescheduled them. And I feel sad because there were kids who went for Halloween as Simba, and
No.
you just have to imagine they were so disappointed.
Yeah.
Even so, sometimes you have to disappoint others to secure and to maintain your own health.
100%. Those are lessons you really learn through life, but I think those are lessons that you can definitely take from a person, a perspective. And sometimes you need to hear certain stories or similar ones often enough to be okay with that because you don't have to live through every experience. Some things, yeah, like a heartbreak. You might think you can get over it, and your mom tells you, he'll get over it, and you just like want to die because he's so sad. And then you get over it, and you're like, oh, well, I guess I got over it. But you have to feel it first. But some things you don't. So I love that you're taking things that you wouldn't connect in everyday life and can show that. What is like another example that you usually show that might not even come to mind right away?
One is sitting in your own audience. Most people don't recognize how valuable they are and how valuable their actions are to the people who are around watching them.
Hmm.
As a parent, you do the everyday duties and it feels like a chore. I gotta do this again. As a spouse, whatever it is, you go into your workplace and you just keep doing tasks and it feels like it's one task on top of the other. During every show, there's a part where Mufasa comes back to talk to Simba. He's died, and the way that they recreated this on stage was that they would take pieces of a mask. I believe there were 9 or maybe 9 pieces. Whatever the number was, each one of those pieces was on a very long stick. The dancers would have to, on the musical cue, put all the pieces together and hold it there. These poles were at least, I want to say at least 10 feet each, which means if you imagine how hard that was to balance those pieces.
Yeah.
I was one of the singers that would be on stage during that scene, and I would be holding a flashlight and a mask and singing behind. But I would look up at the mask and I would see them shaking. I could see the mask going from one
Oh,
side to the other. And when we got backstage, I'd say, guys, that sucked. The mask was horrible. I did it every show. And then they subbed me out. They let me sit in the audience and watch the show myself.
oh,
As,
so
because they had they had swings. So the swings go in, take your role, so that you can see how other people are experiencing what you do.
oh, that's wonderful.
I was sitting in the back, the musical cue hits, and you hear Simba. And then the mask appears, and there are lighting effects on the mask. So what backstage looks like them shaking and trying so hard to hold it together is a beautiful, moving, waving Mufasa face.
So that was intended.
It was intended. And
Um,
tears started rolling down my face. I was in utter shock because I didn't see the effect from the audience's point of view. I only saw it
oh,
from the point of view of being on stage. And if many of us would just stop for a second, looking at our lives from the perspective that we take, and think about how people outside are experiencing us, whether that is through our kindness, whether that is through our motivation, whatever it is. Sometimes we feel like we're just doing a task and someone else is watching us, and they are absolutely amazed. And so I
that's a good
encourage people
point.
to sit in their audience. And the big problem is people try to give us applause. Oh, you do this so well. No, I don't. I'm not, because we're taught to be humble. So
Yeah.
now they're trying to encourage us, and we're saying, no, 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 I don't want the applause. And then when people don't recognize our gifts and abilities, we think, no one recognizes me. But we're
Yes. Yeah. Actually, one of my acting coaches, when I worked as a female lead on a theater, he came to one of the shows, probably like the 10th or something. And I saw him somewhere. I was like, oh my God, he's here today. So I felt so nervous. And then he was like, you were amazing. Everything was like how we practiced and blah, blah. And I was like, oh no. You know, that one time that, and he was like,
yeah.
let me stop you right there. And his face went so serious. He's like, as an actor, you take the compliment. You take it. You don't destroy it. You just take it. And then he like moved on. And I couldn't forget because he didn't just go right into a conversation. He made it really so serious and it stuck with me for life that I'm like, but it's so hard because we're taught to be humble all the time. And oh, no, no, I mean, I do this or yeah, it's my job or whatever. So yeah, maybe right now we should think about other people. Like people are probably watching me in my car right now. Like I'm just recording another episode. Somebody else is like, what is happening in this car? So if you're having a shitty day, just think about the big picture.
It really does come down to that. Those times when you're thinking about, oh, I got to do this, and you don't recognize what an impact you are having. It's so easy to put ourselves down. And
Yeah.
I've done this in audiences. I say, I want you to turn to your neighbor and just tell them two things you like about yourselves. And everyone's like, I like about myself? I can't do that. And then I asked the question, if I said to tell them 5 things you could improve, could you do that?
Mm,
Yeah, that would be
of
easy.
course. Yeah.
There's something wrong with that. I'm learning myself to be okay with saying that I do well what I do and
Hmm.
actually feel comfortable making that statement. We're conditioned to be otherwise. Sit in your audience and watch your show because you are magnificent at what you do and you just have to give yourself credit.
I like that. I'll be thinking about that. So I love that because you do all these different keynote speeches, but currently you're also giving a workshop that's both in person and online called Capture and Keep Attention. What is that about? Can we get a sneak peek? What is it?
Absolutely. People often say, and we keep hearing that there is a lack of attention or our attention spans are getting shorter.
Huh?
And
I got you.
and I ask people, I say, well, when people play video games, do they have problem paying attention?
Mm,
Or
good point.
when we're watching our favorite sport and it's the championship game, do we have problem paying attention? And the answer is no. We don't have an attention problem. So the question is, how do we get people as interested in our talks or in our presentations as they are when they're playing a video game or they're watching their favorite sport or binge watching an entire series on Netflix?
So how
And
can we
that's what
get people to watch this episode?
we have to let them know how it's going to be important to them. Why does it
Ah,
matter to them? What's the benefit? What are they going to get from it? And maybe they're going to see themselves in a whole new way that will make their work and their job at home feel much more fulfilling.
for example, so I'm here. I want to make sure I capture and keep the attention. So we pop up on someone's TikTok right now. What is it? How much time do I have to capture and keep someone's attention?
On video, on social media, you have 6 seconds. In person, you have far more time. One of the best ways to keep attention or capture attention on video is to ask a question or to say something that is contradictory to what most people believe. When you start
Mm.
with a contradiction, ask a question, or connect with an emotion, that's when you get people connected. So that means you want to have what's called that hook.
Ah, yeah, yeah. You do hear that a lot. And then that hook, somebody else uses it to get you to watch that video so that you make that video. But so in person, it's different. So you say people will pay attention longer. Is that because they came to see you or just because they're not as distracted and don't easily have it available?
It's both. One, because they came to see you. They got dressed, probably got in their car, took a long drive there. They came with the expectation. When you're on social media, people are scrolling for the sake of scrolling. They have
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of tabs that might be open if you're looking at it on your computer. That goes to your point of the distractions. There are far more distractions online and with your cell phone that will get to you as opposed to if you get into a venue and you sit down and you have people on either side of you. You're far less likely to have the distractions that you have outside in a virtual world.
That makes so much sense. I know when I go somewhere and there's like a whole bunch of people that are going to speak, you can tell the difference from the energy that someone's giving. I feel like the pauses that someone's taking. I feel energy a lot because some people well, I'm a rambler. So I know if I don't like switch up my energies and pause and maybe ask a question, you might get lost because I speak without comma and dots sometimes. But I'll usually make some weird sound that just comes out of my and then I went there and then they were like, whoa, what just happened? And they pay attention. But if you're kind of just talking like this and then I don't understand the topic at all, then I'm just out.
You absolutely have to change it up. The sound, I've never heard anyone try that. Questions, though, are good.
Mm.
Asking them for input, changing your tone. We're voice artists. We know how to do this part. Anything that changes it up attracts more attention.
That makes sense. Yeah, totally. I really enjoyed always doing workshops. I think because of my bubbliness and stuff, I go in and it's like, all right, let's have fun. I know this topic is not fun, but let's make it fun. I go in, I get like so nervous, and then because I'm nervous, I'm just like, so it'll be interesting. I might actually pop in because capturing I feel like it's almost easier because you can capture, hook someone a little bit, but then to keep that attention when you're in your own world, sometimes it's hard. Because as I'm saying this right now, I'm talking and I could probably use less words, but I'm like processing as I'm talking. So probably also knowing what I want to say, I assume, so I'm not using so many words.
Yes, absolutely knowing what you want to say and also how the audience needs to hear it. And this is not just if you're talking to a huge audience, it's to anybody that you're talking to. How can the message best be conveyed so they want to hear it? What's of interest to them? A lot of the times we lose people's attention because we're focused on what we want to say as opposed to focused on what they need to hear. or what they want to hear.
Mm. Sounds like the universe when you're like, I want this, and the universe is like, Psh, this is what you need. So
Been
when
through
you
that
give,
lesson.
yeah, many times, many times. So when you give this workshop, is it practical in the sense that people have to leave their comfort zone and try it out? So it's really like step by step, you get a to-do list of things that you're going to go through as a class, or is it like somebody raises their hand and like a few people kind of get to do it and the shy ones just kind of watch?
It all depends on the venue that it's in. If it's a shorter session and it's virtual, I'll have one or two people come up and volunteer, and everyone else can watch and contribute. The longer sessions, if it's virtual, I can get people into breakout groups so that they present
Yeah.
to one another. Yes, it's still that opportunity that everyone gets a chance to speak. And then in a full day session, or even on my virtual course, people record it, put it on video, put it in the online community, and then there's an opportunity for group feedback that way.
Oh, that's nice. I like it. I always get so nervous when I have to do stuff like in class environments more because of peer pressure, not wanting to look bad in front of my peers. Like if I'm coaching with someone one on one, I don't like if I mess up, I'm like, you know why I'm here. But I don't like messing up when other people's are. So a lot of times if I don't feel too confident, I won't raise my hand. So sometimes it is convenient when everybody just has to do it, even though my heart just like wants to leave my body completely. But sometimes I'm just glad, okay, I'm going to practice this at home later. Okay. So it's nice that
And
it's an option.
the good thing is, especially in a class setting, if you do make a mistake, there's no consequence. You learn from it. And all the time, we have been conditioned that mistakes, you put a big red X on the paper and look at that mistake. Despite getting 99 right, the focus is on the one wrong. That's what they make stand out. And so we're afraid of failure. I had an experience, and I'll share this as quickly as I can, back in high school when this guy named Hans Engel, as perfect can be, gave a presentation. It was on the Beatles. I'm old. We had tape recorders back then. Hey, we didn't have CD players and MP3s yet. So he pressed play on the tape recorder, and that meant once it started to play, it just kept going. He mentions the first song about the Beatles, and the song plays at the exact same time he mentions it. And everyone's like, whoa, oh, that was good. Did he do that on purpose? He gets to the second song, and it starts playing. Boom, exact same time as he says it. And
Wow.
everybody's going, whoa, this is good. Gets to the third song. As soon as he mentions it, it begins to play. Everybody's losing their mind. I'm a brash teenager at that point, and I don't know what took over my mind, but out of my mouth came the words, if you think that's something, wait till you see my presentation.
Ooh.
I never went back to class.
Oh, I have a big mouth too, and it gets me in trouble. Like if I have like a personal trainer a lot of times too, I'm like, oh, 15, I'll do 35. And then I do like 16. I was like, oh, why do I always have to do that? I can, when you said high school, I immediately felt that because I'm pretty sure that's what it goes back to. I don't know how it is in school now, but back then, like if the teacher called on you and you said the wrong thing, everybody laughs at you. So you're scared. And I think that's where my fear, not in front of the teacher, but in front of everybody else to not look dumb comes from, because I know I'm here to learn. So thinking about what you said earlier, try to be the audience. I'm seeing how that can apply in that sense too, because everyone's probably scared except for that one person that just feels very confident. And so everybody's worried to mess up and that somebody thinks that. So most people probably will not think that. So as I'm saying it loud, I feel like that's what parents and other people and teachers that are nice tell you all the time. But it's a good reminder to take that perspective from the audience, but instead of the audience being like the people around you, that they probably feel the same, and to maybe not be so
Yes.
scared.
And to touch on what you said, we said it's probably something from school and class. Absolutely. Because we know kids can just go and be mean.
Yeah.
And when we develop our personalities, they happen back in those times. So the way that we deal with people in our teenage years is generally how we will cope getting in our adult years. And that's why we have that fear of people ostracizing us in front of the crew.
Yeah.
I will say this, imagine that little girl in high school who was so afraid of people criticizing her. If she could see you on the microphone in your car now, how proud would she be of you?
I'm getting goosebumps, and that sounds super cheesy, and it's 98 degrees out here, but I am. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's crazy. It's actually also a good reminder for, especially where we are. You're on one side as a professional speaker, you go out, and then I'm sure the level where you're at on the voice actor is completely different because you did the one longer. So to remind yourself, like wherever you are, and we hear this all the time too, to look back where you were before. But seriously, I have to do this. So my thing is I do a monthly achievement thing in my Excel sheet. I'm an Excel person. Everything's in my Excel sheet. And I put any kind of little achievement or something that I accomplished that I didn't do before, no matter how small it is. And sometimes I look back 6 months and I was like, I didn't even think at all I was going to be doing this, or that was going to happen, or I was going to meet this person or go here. So yeah, maybe it's slow in this area right now, but look at all this other stuff that happened. And it's so
Yes,
hard because a lot of times you're so focused on the one thing that you want again that you don't see the other things.
you don't. And I think of it looking back, as you said, I look back at that kid who never went back to a class because he didn't think he could do
Mm.
a presentation, has now traveled the world, done presentations to government leaders and corporations all over the world. I have my highest level of completed education is high school, but I've taught at Harvard University and Fletcher School of Business. I can look back and say, yeah, that's where I was. But if you keep going, if you are consistent, if you do it day after day after day and show up, yeah, it doesn't matter where you started. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Keep doing it. Eventually you'll do it well.
Oh, that's really, really nice. It's a really nice way to end this too. So if people want to find you, find out more about this, your book that I see in the back, or your website, take one of your courses, or also chat with you because I could talk for hours. Where can people find you?
The first place is my website, johnwatkiss.com. And you can find me on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I try to be consistent with LinkedIn, but those are the three where you will find me the most. John Watkis. That is no N, Watkis. Most people try and correct me on my spelling of my last name. So Watkis, and thank you for pronouncing it correctly.
I rarely try to pay attention because I get that myself a lot of times too with my name. But we'll put it here and then everyone can see it and can find you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your super busy schedule. Where are you going next?
Next is Boston. So I'm teaching at the Fletcher School of Business. I've done it actually for the past few years at Fletcher School of Business. And so I'm doing that the 10th. And a couple days later, I'll be teaching at Harvard Kennedy School of Business. So I'll be in Boston for the week.
Ooh, well, have fun in Boston. I know some
Yes.
people there. I'm going to wave you. Let's see that. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for you tuning in to another episode of German Chocolate, Life of a Mixed Girl in the season 1 series of The Experts I Know. Bye.